Welcome to the literally first ever attempt at doing a podcast here at our, what I like to call our studio, our speakeasy studio, because right, it's where we're at. It's pretty cool. It's behind our, our Remax brokerage office, and you kind of got to go through some weeds and some back stuff, and all of a sudden you end up in a super cool podcast room, which we'll start to feature. But appreciate having you here. So, for those of you guys that are watching this out there, this is Brian Kirchner, my business partner. I'm Casey Quinn, the host of this podcast, of which we still don't have a name for, but we'll get there eventually on the name and everything we're trying to do. But we felt it was important. We're big action guys. We've been able to build quite a portfolio, quite a company here in 3 years through action, and so we wanted to get rolling and start chatting. And obviously, my privilege here to be hosting this, and alongside Brian as the co-host, and what I'll call more of our Keller guy as we get rolling. But really wanted to start out just kind of getting a feel for Brian's journey along the way, what he's been able to accomplish in his life. He has quite an interesting backstory, very different than mine, and we've been able to kind of mesh to create Citylife, and it's been quite fun. So, I'll really start there with you, right, Brian? Kind of, introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about your background, how you got started, and why you wanted to be in real estate, and where you're at right now.
Well, Casey, as you know, you probably know a little bit more than most out there. So we'll get into some of the fun stuff. But no, this is exciting. This is going to be a super exciting part of the journey that it's been. I mean, it's been a fun journey for myself, about 6 years of becoming a real estate agent, really starting to enjoy investing, learning investing, then actually building a portfolio. So, I mean, real estate was always something that I loved, and always something that was just intrigued me. I like design. I like seeing a product. I like seeing a product be turned to life, like this podcast room. I love watching a blank slate, watching it turn into something special. So real estate was just a natural, for being an entrepreneur, natural, easy step in to what I basically did without getting into all the crazy details.
It's interesting you say that, because it's been fun for me to watch you along your journey. You always do, everything with a purpose. And I couldn't help but look at your shirt whenever we were sitting here and you started talking, because, and I don't know if you know this yet, but I'm sure you wear Patagonia for a reason, but the founder and owner of Patagonia, the company's worth $3 billion. He just donated his entire company to the climate crisis that we're going through. So you probably wear Patagonia for a reason, but it's pretty cool for there. Let me take a step back here. Maybe right. You mentioned 6 years ago you became a real estate agent, right? And so you were, not to get too much into the story behind how we met. I'm sure we'll get there, and how we got into business together. But you were my real estate agent when I bought my house, and at this point in time I was still in corporate America, and you were, a couple years in probably to your real estate agent journey, probably still figuring it out. But why did you become a real estate agent?
So I became a real estate agent because I bought a few houses, early 20s, had some cash saved up just from some different entrepreneurial ventures that I was in. But so I had some cash saved up, I bought a few houses. I learned quickly that I needed to leverage the money, because now I have 4 or 5 units, all of my money's tied into these properties. I go apply for loans at banks, I have zero credit because I never had credit. I had no job, I had no W-2 income, I had nothing. I liked real estate. So I was like, well, how the hell do I get loans? How do I do any of this? How do I borrow money? Like, how do I live an adult life?
Yeah,
it's kind of what it was. I own a couple properties.
I think we're all still figuring that out, right?
Yeah, fucking right. But yeah, so an agent of mine, Rick Secor, actually. So he grew up in Mount Oliver.
Shout out Rick.
Big Slick Rick. Slick Rick. But yeah, he was showing me some properties. He sold me a duplex, and he said, why don't you just get your license? He's running me around to these few properties every week, and he said, why don't you just get a real estate license? You're the perfect age to do it. And I was like, yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I thought you had to go to college or some shit for it. It was like 60 hours of it. I was blown away after I read the criteria to become a real estate agent. I was like, get the fuck out.
As in easy?
It's so easy.
Okay.
Like, to me, it was easy. I thought everything you needed a 4-year degree. I read 60 hours, you got to take one test. So,
I'm sure at the time your test taking abilities weren't great, right?
No, so the funny part is it still took me 3 times taking the test, and it took me about 6 to 8 months of I actually took the classes twice. So I took the classes first time, didn't study, didn't take the test, waited 6 months, took the test, failed it miserably, took the test again, failed it again. I'm like, all right, I need to actually go back to classes, pay attention, study, pass it the first time. And I was like, all right, now I'm on this journey.
It's funny you say that, right? Because, so many people out there and, across the country are, how did you get started and how do you do it? And, I got to get my real estate license. And, my wife always talks about getting a real estate license. And I always say, go do it. And here we are. You went and did it, right? You failed 3 times at a test, but you kept going and you got it because, oh my God, this daunting test, this 60 hours or whatever it is, like just go do it. It's not that hard. Just start, right?
Yeah, that's what it was. I mean, after Rick told me that, I think I looked it up within a few days. I was already signed up for classes, went and took the classes, just like every other class I took in my entire life. I went there thinking I can just go and kind of not pay attention, cheat my way through the test. I even had plans to cheat on the test, but I did not. But it was harder than I thought.
Something tells me that maybe you used to cheat on a test prior to that then. Why would you get that idea?
That's your public school.
Let them know, tell them.
That's the public school education, right?
Right.
Basically, you could find any way to maneuver through public school, Carrick, Knoxville, Overbrook, where I went to, basically all K through 12. But yeah, so I mean, that was the story. I mean, I got my license and it was off to the races. I mean, I was never more excited to actually learn though. So whenever I first got my license, joined with KW in Bethel Park, Cindy Schmidt, great broker, good training platform they had at the time where they actually had classes weekly. And I went to every one of them. I went to every one of them for probably a year straight where I was going every week, every day, bothering agents, bothering the lenders there. The lenders are actually...
Why were you doing that?
I liked it. I liked it because you controlled your own destiny. Like, in a commission-based real estate world, nobody was there to tell me, hey, you can or can't. Like, you wake up and you decide what the hell you want to do. I woke up and decided every day that I want to make more money. I was natural born entrepreneur. I love going out and grinding and creating, and that was just my...
Let me dive, if you don't mind, let me dive a little bit further into what you just said there, right? You said I was a natural born entrepreneur, and, a lot of people say that. I certainly wasn't. Here I am, right? Obviously an entrepreneur and as the CEO of our company together at Citylife Realty Group and navigating the entrepreneurial world. And you say you were a born entrepreneur. To me, I'm not necessarily sure that's totally true, right? I think that things happened in your life probably that may have created a little bit more of you being an entrepreneur, right? And having known you so well and knowing your history, right? It may have came out of a need, right? And so when you think about, wanting to control your own destiny through the real estate, you mentioned that, and you were a natural born entrepreneur. Why don't you speak maybe a little bit to why you had to be?
Yeah, so growing up, I mean, we grew up a little bit, let's just call it poor, for lack of a better term. And we grew up poor, so we grew up, parents didn't really work. We're kind of supported by welfare, our grandma. So anything we really wanted, we kind of had always, I basically watched my family count on other people, and I never wanted to count on anybody. So growing up, I always wanted to be full control of everything I ever accomplished. I never wanted to sit around and wait for anybody to hand me anything, so I wanted to go create that. So I think from early stages, I was doing stupid shit at lunch for money, or whatever it was.
What?
You name it. I would dance people, throw shit at the lunch ladies.
Hey guys, you want to be an entrepreneur? Start dancing people at lunch.
Yeah, I did that for free, but I would also do offenses for money. but yeah, anything I can do I was trading baseball cards, and I know you hear Gary Vee say it all the time. That was my favorite thing to do as a kid. We're just trading baseball cards, pogs, like you name all those little
pogs.
Goofy things.
Pogs.
Yes.
I love the pogs.
Yes, anything to make a few extra bucks, including some illegal stuff. But
we'll save that for another day, right? We'll save the necessity things that were needed to be done, early on in your entrepreneurial journey. That's cool, man. It's you got a little emotional there.
You know me too well, Casey.
Yeah. So it's it's cool for me to be a part of this journey with you to see what we've created. I think we're just getting started. Maybe do me a favor here and speak a little bit to right now. So you live that life where it's create, and it's all you could ever do, create to survive. And you've come along this journey, right? And we found each other, and we kind of started where we were at with Citylife, and we were moving in this entrepreneurial world. And it was all about creating. And as we've grown over the last 3 years, we've had to create a ton of structure in the organization. And that's kind of where I came in, and we kind of deemed me quickly. I kind of had to be the runner of the day-to-day of the organization and create the structure and things. And I'm sure that's been incredibly challenging for you. We've put you in different positions, and you've had to be a leader, be held accountable for different things as we continue to scale and create structure. And a guy that like yourself, that's come from a world of you eat what you kill that day, and you got to grind along the way to get to where you want to go. And all of a sudden there's all this structure and maybe a little bit of roles here and there and some things you can't do, some things you got to pass off. All of that world of big business, how has that changed your life for the better and for the worse, and how have you been able to navigate some of that?
Definitely challenging, but I've always thrived whenever there's challenges. Like I like being challenged. It's not my natural pull to be in structure. You know me very well. I'm not a structure person.
I know, brother.
I'd rather just run that way, and make shit happen. But with structure,
we could have a whole podcast on how I've had to rein in Brian. But
yeah, well, the structure. Not the problem. I understand structure very well. Like, so I get it, and I come from a very, I'm always a supportive person. So I always want to see other people win. So regardless of what that takes, I'm always like, all right, how do I help other people win? Whether it's leadership, whether it's give, take, whatever that might be, whatever's needed of me, I'm always more of a serving type person, always been. So I think that allows me to understand structure, allows me to be comfortable with it, because if that's what's needed at the time. Now at the same time, there's always going to be a pull for me to go create, go do stuff. So I'm always going to want to do that. But I'm always very, the challenge of doing something completely uncomfortable and that you're not used to is way more rewarding than doing something you're very comfortable and used to. That's just, I don't know if that's competitiveness or just my natural nature, but I'm like, if you give me a clear path forward and you can go, here goes the mystery box lane right there, I'm going to take the mystery box lane. And that's just how I am.
It's, it's interesting. You said, talk a little bit about wanting to help other people, and I know when we started, I come out of the corporate world and you lived the entrepreneurial world, and we collided, and it was awesome for me to kind of see like, hey, this dude's got this vision board and this big board and all these goals that he has set. Meanwhile, I'm over here like, all I need to do is work 18, 20 hours a day every single day. I'm going to get ahead in life. You had these goals that you're attacking every single day. So maybe talk a little bit about how you set goals, what maybe they are, and where you want to be out into the future through the goals that you have personally, professionally, whatever it is.
Goals are a big, it sounds stupid, and everyone always said, hey, write down some goals and stuff. And it's like, all right, cool, I'll write down a couple of goals. And I started reading. I obviously didn't read much in high school or college or anywhere else. So I started reading as I became an agent. Every single book had a common thing. Have a goal. Have goals. Have targets.
Any books throw out there while you're on
Think
that?
and Grow Rich is obviously a very common one. That one was one of the bigger ones. That was probably the most relevant one, because a lot of it was goal, visualize exactly what you want. And
give me your one goal that book helped you create, and what's still on your board of goals that you haven't hit yet that you created early on in your career.
One goal that was on there, which we surpassed. So I had one goal on there. I think it's still a screensaver on my phone that needs updated, but it was $25 million in property value within 5 years. It was, I believe, $880,000 in rental income, gross rental income. And it was 125 properties by August 2024. And that was written 3 years prior to that.
So I get a little bit of inside scoop here, right, because you're my business partner, but you left probably the goal that has resonated the most with me out? And I threw you on the spot, so that's okay. But the goal that has always resonated the most with me, because I had a similar goal, you know, albeit a little bit different along my journey, and continuing to try to get there. But one of the goals that you have, and I bet you it's still on your screensaver, because Brian has his goals literally on the background of his phone as a screensaver, and he attacks those every day. But one of those was you wanted to create 50 millionaires. So why don't you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so part of that goal, part of the property goal, I wanted to be able to create 50 millionaires through real estate or through wherever that was, and I believe real estate's probably the quickest, easiest route to do that. I believed if I was able to obtain those amount of properties and continue to do that, that I could give enough knowledge or help somebody really create wealth through real estate. Goal was to help 50 people create that wealth through real estate. 50 different people I'd love to see become millionaires through some kind of help that I've given them, whether it was simple advice or really walking them through day to day, helping them find properties, doing whatever we can, whatever I learned, whatever took me so long to learn, and how many trials and errors that I learned to help somebody, guide them through that process, so they don't have to make so many mistakes. And I mean, it's only 8 to 10 properties. That's all somebody needs to really achieve, 8 to 10 properties to become a millionaire. And that's going to change their kids' lives. That's going to change their kids' lives. Those properties will continue to trickle down. That changes everything for a lot of people. Like, you can still make a 40, 50, 60 grand salary a year, and you can still accomplish becoming a millionaire. That's what I really wanted to show, that it's very doable.
Compounding interest, right? Like the compound effect of real estate, what that does, the valuations, how that grows, appreciation, really cool. I don't want to get into all the details of that today, because we'll be here overnight and end up falling asleep on the floor talking about a lot of that. My background is in the finance and the accounting world, so analyzing deals and the structure, all of those different things is what I'm really good at. And it's been a journey for me and fun to watch you evaluate the real estate, right? Because you don't come from an incredibly educated school system. You don't come from a extremely deep-rooted in education, home life. And watching you be able to analyze deals, early on in the business, as we were growing, it was you analyzing our deals, and then I would say, okay, yes or no. But at the end of the day, you were doing most of all of that work. How have you been able to do that, coming from your background, coming from like against all odds, right? Because there's a lot of people out in this world that we're really starting to say, hey, you can do this too, right? I'm getting in all these different rooms, and it's you can do this or you can do that, but you got to go. And so, of course, you went and you did it. But maybe talk a little bit about some of the struggles that you had along the way of, for lack of a better term, I don't know how to count 1 + 1. How the hell can I analyze a deal to figure out if I'm going to make money?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, when I became a real estate agent, no bullshit. So first day of learning, I didn't know what a PDF was. So I get in there with my computer, and it teaches me how to do e-sign. And
you were analyzing deals in Microsoft Word, I'm pretty sure.
I still do. but yeah, so I didn't even know what a PDF was. So it definitely didn't come easy. I like numbers, but I hated like algebra, equations, spreadsheets, all the shit that goes with it. But it just became it's a lot simpler than people make it out to be. Like, people complicate it so much, and there is some complications to it. It's why everybody doesn't do it, because there are a lot of what ifs, but it just took trial and error. It took a lot of trial and error. It cost me money to do that, because I learned, I asked a lot of questions, obviously took a lot of action. I joined a real estate company that did investing, got some answers there. I got some answers I just asked investors. As an agent, I worked with a lot of investors. So instead of bitching about the $1,000 I'd make to show them a $50,000 property 50 times to make that was a learning experience. Every time I went to that house, I asked them questions about what are they going to do on a renovation. I spent an hour with them every day, walking outside of the property, talking to them about how this deal makes sense, how that deal didn't make sense. So a lot of that got me so much hands-on learning, where a lot of people's like, I don't want to work with an investor. They're looking at these $50,000 houses. You're only going to make on commission 2.5%, 3% on there. And after you pay the broker, you're only getting a couple $100. They missed out on all the learning experiences that I got through that. And there's so much, people are willing to share that stuff. People that have done it are usually excited to teach somebody else how to invest in real estate because once you learn it, it's amazing.
Yeah. And I want to go back real quick to the point of, one of your biggest goals, which is to create 50 millionaires. The way that I look at that is I think there'll be no question about it that we'll get there soon. We had to create something amazing in order to be able to do that much easier, and we have done that, and we're going to continue to do that. Right? You're well on your journey, right? You've essentially created 6 or 7 already between myself, my wife, now my son, your wife. You have 2 beautiful children. We're all millionaires, right? We're on our journey to create additional millionaires through our company, through our employees, and so it doesn't go unnoticed. So I wanted to make sure that I let you know that. What are some of the biggest regrets that you had along the journey so far?
Regrets. I wish I'd have built credit center, but I guess
Explain that further.
Yeah, so in my early 20s and stuff, I never had a credit. Growing up poor, you're taught never to take on debt. It's just the very common themes from parents, or for whatever reason, if you're in your 30s, your parents, and you grew up in a city neighborhood, maybe that's still the case now, that you're always told never to take on debt. Don't have a bunch of bills. Don't take out credit cards. Don't take out loans. Never have a bunch of debt. And that's just how you're taught. So my entire 20s, I paid everything cash. I never had a credit card. Never had a bill. Never had a car payment. By the time I was 28 or 29, I couldn't even get a credit card because my credit was so bad because I never had credit. I wish I would have started that so much sooner because that probably cost me about 2.5 to 3 years of buying properties. Because I would have been easily buying properties 3 years prior. And just little simple things like that could cost me a couple of years of just not having that general knowledge. That was one of the bigger regrets. I was going to say another regret would be not building sooner something that created more additional cash flow.
Okay.
We created a bunch of stuff that provides a lot of wealth, long-term wealth. As we know, real estate will bring you some cash. You're doing flips, so it could bring you more cash. But if you're holding on to real estate, that margin isn't great. A lot of people think you're $1,400 a month of rent, $1,500 of rent. They're making a killing.
Talk about all the time, I'm paper rich, right?
Yeah, exactly. We got a lot of money on paper.
Yeah.
Building it a little bit sooner that can actually create more cash to support the people that are really helping us, so we can buy more properties. So I think definitely a bigger regret. I know recently we've been leaning towards that, but for a while there we're buying everything, putting it in our portfolio, using that to support. Now it's like, man, I think we should have took a step back and
made some money.
Yeah,
it's funny you say that, right? Because I think when we partnered, it was all about, hey, let's build the long-term wealth. We're all about the longevity game, and along the way, in the first 3 years for myself in the business and our partnership, right? Like we started out making $0. We put ourselves on $40,000 annual salaries when we first started out in the business, and that was tough for me for a very long time in my family because I came from corporate America. I came from an incredibly good job. I was in consulting at a national public accounting firm, and I was traveling the country, so most of my life was already paid for through travel, through the company paying that on top of an incredibly good salary. And so, coming back and looking at how we did things, yeah, certainly we probably should have, what a lot of the mentors in my life now tell us is we, right, are trying to get help from people that have been there, done that, to help us create 50 millionaires is, you've got to make sure you take care of yourself first. You've got to take the chips off the table that makes sense to create comfort for yourself on the personal life so that you can focus on the business and focus on growing that through helping other people. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there in terms of just you've got to make sure that you're okay. You've got to make sure that you're building the real estate portfolio for cash flow as well as long-term wealth, right? And then looking out into the future and understanding what's happening in the market so that you're always one step ahead of the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I wouldn't say it's a huge regret, but yeah, one of the ones it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
Again, should have did this a little sooner.
Yeah. What, obviously, the navigating all of this over, the last, heck, you're probably getting close to 40, so over the last 40 years, right? Obviously as a kid, etc. But And sorry if I offended you there by that
Sorry.
comment, but right, who's helped you along the way?
End of podcast.
Who's helped you along the way, man?
Help. I mean, definitely had some help. I would say there's a lot of people that helped me that didn't have to help me, and I said again, there's a lot of investors out there that help me. I'll throw out a name, Joe Calloway, who also helped me through RE360. I was kind of an employee there, kind of ran a residential brokerage for a little bit, but I did that probably a year after being an agent, and went there because Joe grew up in Mount Oliver. I grew up in Mount Oliver, Knoxville area. He had 400 some units. I was looking to build a portfolio and starting. Made perfect sense whenever Joe approached me for that. So they were buying properties. I was never at a workplace before where they actually, a business in general, I never had a job. So starting to go around an office where they were kind of doing some things to buy properties, renovate properties and all that. So I definitely had some mentorship there of more from an entrepreneurial mentorship, but I learned a lot from Mike Roth as well, who was their CFO. Mike Roth was doing a lot of the day-to-day stuff, so Mike Roth definitely helped out on like some of the why deals make sense, why deals didn't make sense. So Mike definitely taught me some stuff behind the scenes there. Learned a lot from you being in corporate America a while, and accounting and business structure. I mean, I obviously spent 3 years with you now. I talk to you every day, probably equally, if not more, than my wife. So it's a lot from you. I mean, obviously you very high level of what you've done for many years. I mean, that trickles down to what we do now. So you spent 80 hours a week working in public accounting for 10 years.
I wish it was only 80 a week, bro.
Yeah, whatever the hell it was. It was a lot.
Yeah.
So that knowledge, you basically have 20, 30 years worth of actual working knowledge. That something that I can easily, like, anybody who's doing something that's at a high level that I was able to listen to, able to surround myself with in the last, call it 7 to 8, 9 years, been extremely, extremely helpful.
How do we together, how do you right now, if somebody that's probably been sitting on the sideline now for about 2 years, maybe 3 years, and probably a lot of them longer, a lot of our employees, a lot of people in Pittsburgh and a lot of people nationwide, everybody likes real estate at the end of the day. Real estate is amazing because we all live in a house and we all drive by it every single day, so we're all intrigued. Everybody's interested in getting involved. What would be some things that you would tell folks that aren't in real estate but are interested, how to just get started somehow?
Don't overcomplicate it. Don't plan too much. I think everybody says they're going to invest in real estate one day. Like somebody always has, I want to buy a property, I want to buy a rental property. They overthink it too much because you hear of all of these strategies out there. Go talk to somebody, whether it's reach out to whoever your resource is that owns more than their personal house, that owns at least one property, and just ask them, how did you buy that property? Reach out and ask, because somebody is there to help you. Reach out to us, whatever it is. I mean, that's what we do for a living. Reach out to somebody because somebody's going to help you do that, but don't wait. The longer you wait, interest rates are a little bit higher right now, but whenever I first started buying properties, my first couple of refinances, that I probably still have rates around the same percentage right now as they were then. Yeah,
I think the historical national average was like 7% over the last 30 years or something like that. So it's still lower than what they historically have been.
Yeah, very common. I mean, they've been super low, obviously, over the last few years, so a lot of people have gotten in at a low rate. But when I first started it, I was paying right around 7%, 6.5%, 7%. So you just need to get started. You need to get started and just understand what your risk is without overcomplicating it. Don't sit around and think about reading all the shit out there, because there's a lot of stuff that's going to guide you 1,000 different ways. Just reach out to somebody and ask. Then just pull the trigger.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting point, right? Because for me, what I've learned is there's so many ways to get in real estate. The key is just to go and don't overcomplicate it. You don't have to do what Brian did, right? We don't have to do what you did and start buying properties right away. We can go take a job at a real estate company. We can start following 6 or 7 real estate people. We can start trying to wholesale one deal. We could become a real estate agent on the side, right? I think right? I don't know how many real estate agents there are across the country, but most of them do it part-time. Get into it part-time. We have agents in our shop that did it part-time, now full-time. Our brokerage director was a teacher for 11 years. She's officially a retired teacher, and she's doing real estate full-time for us. She's taken the journey along the way through part-time. Another great example is Mikey Lucas. Mikey Lucas is our construction manager, and I always mess with him, and this will be a story that probably lives on forever, but it was one of the funniest interviews, and I mess with him all the time and about his interview that he had with us, but he just wanted a chance, and he came and interviewed us and took a construction project manager type role at Citylife for low pay, took a pay cut to come in and to learn what he was doing. Year one went by, and all he did was consume himself 50, 60, 70 hours a week in construction, right? And literally attached himself to your hip, because at the time you were running the construction side of the thing. You were out in the field, you were dealing with all the renovations, you were picking the designs on the properties, you were doing all of that for us at the time. And Mikey Lucas attached to the hip. Within a year, he was running the construction show, he was managing the guys, and guess what? I think he's done a couple wholesales now. He's on his 4th or 5th rental at this point probably. And how he did that was by saying, I don't know what I'm doing, let me surround myself with the people that are doing this already, attach myself to their hip, take a job there so that I can survive and not worry about an extra $10,000 in annual salary, because I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars in education by getting around a guy that owns 500 plus units, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's it, and that's exactly what Mikey did. And I mean, he reached out we had a job posting on Facebook, something he was not even in that field at all. Reached out, and I believe in giving people opportunities too. I mean, somebody that reached out directly, I think we had an ad on Indeed, and no one reached out directly. Basically, you had that post that took you to Indeed. Mm-hmm. Got a bunch of random. Yeah,
you go sit in their filler application with 50 others, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. They all sit back. There's one person that reached out directly, and it was Mike Lucas. Somebody not even truly qualified for the job looking for, but reached out, already had a decent job, was willing to learn, willing to take a pay cut, and I think that was one of the better decisions that we've ever made. And for him too, that's taking that education and realizing that, hey, there's more to it than just a job here. I want to be in this field. I've been drawn to this field. I've been drawn to real estate. Taking a job in real estate makes sense. Or working, if you're an agent, be a part of a team. That is probably another regret I do have. If I would have started back over as an agent, as a new agent, I would have joined a team. I would have learned so much more, so much faster, and at least learned some structure on it. Because when you jump in, 1,000 different directions. You work with buyers, you work with sellers, you need a CRM, you need this, you need that. It's just advertising that pulls you a million different ways. Being a part of a team can kind of guide you, like, hey, someone's already been there and done that. You're going to pay to be on that team. That team, you're going to make half of the commission that you're going to make, but you're getting all that knowledge. You're going to learn how to do all that, whether you decide to stay with that team or build your own business at some point in the future, great, but that was another regret I had. So that would be, if you want to be in real estate, learn from people that are in there, or just go get yourself in there as well. If you're working 40 hours a week, there's extra hours there.
Yeah, I'll tell a quick story along those lines, for you, and I we've chatted about in the past, and it's always been, one of those chips on my shoulder, right? And I took, I was in public accounting and a consultant, and I was making good money and traveling the country and helping other companies figure out their problems and help them solve those problems to scale. And I took a massive pay cut, right? And, to take a CFO role here locally. And, ultimately things didn't work out. But the education I got over that time, that ridiculous pay cut that I took, right? The abundance mindset of the education that I'm getting along the way will pay dividends. And I think the American society and the culture of which we live in, it's all about, hey, what's that extra dollar? And I think generally speaking, people in the public, that's what they're focused on. Hey, how do I get a $10,000 raise? But we have no idea the education we're getting that could take us to where we want to go. And I think the problem is because we think through too much of what is the structure of which we can get to wherever we want to go. So if I do this, potentially it gets me here. And so we're hoping and praying, right, that we're going to get to where we want to go and saying, hey, this is where I need to be. And then you work backwards to figure out exactly what I need to do every day to help me get to that goal. And anything else along the way, let's get rid of that. And for me personally, what I've learned is you have to understand and see where people are at in order to get there. And so I was a big, huge disbeliever, like even dating back to college, I ain't joining no fraternity. I ain't paying for my friends. Why the hell would I pay for friends? And so I was never in a fraternity. Like, I can meet friends on my own. I can go to a bar and have 7 drinks and talk to the dude next to me. We become buddies, and I could build some rapport and have a lot of fun. And so I never did that. And even into my public accounting days along my journey, I thought that for many years. And what I've learned over the last couple of years is pay for the education. I was away at Scale and Escape over the weekend. A mentor of mine, Ken Clothier, and he put on an incredible show. He had Ed Milet as a speaker, Alex Rodriguez as a speaker, and everything everybody talks about is what is your purpose and how the hell do you suppress your time in order to get to that goal. And it's just incredibly fascinating because if you could spend a couple dollars or make a couple dollars less along the way in order to 10x that investment of your time, of your dollars, that's how you exponentially grow, as opposed to saying, hey, I've got to trade my time today for a couple more dollars because I'm worth it. But what is the real education that I'm getting along the way? And so for us, right, we're getting that education along the way, whether we're getting in the rooms, whether we're doing trial and error. We mess up all the time. How many mistakes have we made in our 3-year journey?
A lot.
Yeah, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we make a mistake every single day. I remember back early on when we didn't have pennies to scratch together, and we were borrowing at 30 and 35% hard money interest rates because we had one goal, and it was to build that portfolio as fast as we could. And one day I just remember I stood up and I grabbed my head and said, I just made a $25,000 mistake, and was pacing the room and going crazy, and you calmed me down, right? Do you remember that?
I remember
that time, and we didn't have money, right? And the way that you approach that situation of, okay, no problem, we're going to learn from that mistake and we're going to fix it. And what do we got to do to fix that mistake? And so I thought that was pretty cool on the way. But how, for you, with that being said, maybe give that message. What is that one message of, hey, I did it, you can do it too, here's how? What's that one message ultimately that you can give to anybody that follows you or anybody that's interested in your life to say, hey, you can do it too?
To touch on that 25K mistake first.
I was trying to squeeze on by that, bro.
So it's funny, is 2 days ago, I was effing around in Gmail. And I was like, oh, you can set auto send, or where you can reverse send. I was like, you can put a time limit on this. I was like, man, if we had that a couple years ago. I was like, might have been able to avoid that, the 25K.
We're even getting education today from Brian on how to work Gmail. Can you believe that?
But then I thought about it, I'm like,
and by the way, my goal is to get Brian out of Gmail because it's just a waste of his time.
well, I was going to set up some templates, but then I saw you can unsend. But anyway, it just came to my mind like 2 days ago for the first time in a while. So that's funny. But yeah, I mean, one message, I mean, really to get started, really, like, if there's someone out there listening that's following or whatever the purpose is, if there's only reached one person today, it would just be
how do you change one person's life?
One person's life is, regardless of what you're doing, don't get caught in that rat race. Don't get caught in believing that everything, like in social media, everything looks great. You can get caught in that thing for hours and hours and hours. Write down some goals and just get around people that aren't bringing you down. Get around people that aren't just going to keep pulling you down. Get in rooms with people, regardless of what that is, whether it's real estate, whether if you just want to be a contractor, whatever that is, whatever you decide that is, you have to get started in something, but you have to also believe you do have to write that down and make that known. I'm going to do this and tell people about it. Because once you tell people about it, they might call you full of shit, they might say whatever, but now you have somebody kind of holding you accountable because they're going to laugh at you even more if you don't go do it. So write it down. Don't just keep it in your head. Write it down and write a definitive date of when you're getting started and get started. If you say, hey, I really want to get into real estate, by when? By November 1st. Whatever that is, it might just be joining a room. It might even just be reaching out to your friend that's a real estate agent to ask. But to create some kind of deadline to get started and get started. That would be the biggest thing I would say. And who cares if you fail? Failure is part of life. Failure is great. You learn so much from failure.
So I got 2 things to add to that real quick, and then we'll kind of end kind of wrap up our conversations. I think we could go forever, and maybe we'll start to create an avenue of which we do this a little bit more. But and then I just lost my train of thought. So fantastic. Point one was there's no such thing as failure unless you quit. I heard someone say that to me before, and it really resonated with me because every time that we fail, it's an opportunity to grow and get better, unless we quit.
Yeah.
Right? And so the only failure is when we quit. Otherwise, it's an opportunity because we're on a lifelong journey to reach whatever goals that we want to set for ourselves. And so failure along the way is an opportunity to learn, grow, and get better at reaching those goals and targets that we're ultimately after, unless we quit.
Okay.
Number two, I heard a saying that really resonated with me as well. And so for all of the accountants out there, right, what we have is called an asset and what we have is called a liability on the financial statements. And it resonated with me because of that. But how do we make our lives full of assets and not liabilities? And I'm not talking dollars and cents and property and owing the bank money and all those different things. I'm talking about your life, the people that you surround yourself with. Are they an asset to your life? Or are they a liability to your life? Are they causing you problems and bringing you down? Or are they lifting you up? And that really resonated with me when you said that because of the asset liability concept. If we surround ourselves with assets, we have nowhere to go but up. If we surround ourselves with liabilities, we're going to go nowhere but broke.
Correct. Yeah, whether that's people or like you said, I mean, if you're just buying stupid shit, it's going to bring you down. If you're hanging out with stupid people, you're going to be a stupid person. Like, that's just natural. I mean, I fell into those holes before just doing stupid shit. I mean, I made bad decisions before. I mean, that's no one's fault but my own.
Yeah.
So doing that, surrounding yourself with people who want to win, surrounding yourself and putting yourself in winning situations, you're going to win at least more than what you're winning now. Even you might not ever hit that goal, but keep setting bigger goals. Like, you should always be chasing something, and you should always have you should always have a goal to hit or a target to chase or something that you want to do to be better. And I'm a firm believer in that because that's what keeps you going. Otherwise, if you're completely complacent and content with what you're doing, I just cannot see finding happiness doing that. Or at least, even if it's just helping somebody out or whatever that is, I think you have to have some kind of goal, some kind of vision for yourself. Otherwise, you're just moving along in this world, and there's not much time in this world.
Yeah. Before I wrap up here and let you get back to doing what you're the best at, which is creating, maybe how do you feel about the first podcast?
It was decent. I'm more worried about the camera angles.
So for those of you who don't know, with this being the first time, I think and Tyler's here in the background, but I think I got here around 9 o'clock, and it's maybe around 10 o'clock by the time we got started because these guys were so fidgety with the angles. And I said, that's it. Let's get going. We preach we got to take action and get rolling. So here's what we did. Appreciate everybody. Look, we're really looking forward. I really appreciate Brian giving some knowledge to us today, getting emotional right along the way. It's been such a journey for us. It's been such a journey for me for the last 3 years. I can't thank you enough for changing my life forever, allowing me to do what I'm good at, allowing me to get in rooms with people so much better than me, to help learn, to get better, to get educated, to bring that back to you, to our teams, to our people, to Pittsburgh, the greatest city on this earth. I don't care what anybody says. And we're just getting started, man. We still call it every day to our teams, to what we're doing. We're a startup company. We're just getting started. 3 years is nothing for this journey. We're after something absolutely spectacular. I would not be along this journey if it wasn't for you. Don't want to be along this journey with anybody else but you. And I appreciate everything you do for Citylife.
Awesome. You know, that goes without saying. We're going to get the emotional air too.
All right, man.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Thanks, guys.